My name is Adam Balkin. I'm the technology reporter for New York One News. And when I asked if we were going to have a teleprompter or anything like that, I was told, no, just print it out on a piece of paper and bring it. And I said, I'm a technology reporter. There's no way I can print something on paper. So I have my iPad here, and this is what I'll be reading off of through a teleprompter app. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the Learning Leaders 2014 Spring Luncheon on this beautiful day here in New York City. It's great to see so many of you here today to celebrate this incredible organization and to recognize the huge impact that our collaboration as a community of caring New Yorkers, educators, parents, and volunteers can have on the achievement of our city's public school children. We are all stakeholders in the success of our public education system, which is why Learning Leaders is dedicated to engaging families and communities to help each student fulfill his or her potential. Your support is vital to Learning Leaders and to our students, and we want to thank you for your varied and generous contributions to this important cause. As New York One's technology reporter and host of It Ain't Rocket Science, a series produced by New York One for Time Warner Cable's Connect a Million Minds campaign, I see firsthand the importance of engaging children in their learning, which is why I'm so proud to be here supporting Learning Leaders. I enjoy seeing firsthand children experience the fun and practical applications of the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math. And several times a month, I get to meet with students, and it's great to watch the kids' excitement as they experience that, wow, it really is useful moment, which I find a lot of those moments when they realize, wow, I can use STEM to make video games or to create a flying drone. All children deserve to experience this wow factor to determine what interests them and explore new worlds. We must pass our passions for discovery and learning on to our children. And this is just what Learning Leaders does, empowering family and community members to ignite and develop that spark and enthusiasm for learning with children. We have a fantastic program for you today. We will hear from Learning Leaders Chair of the Board of Trustees, Jeremy Koch, and from the Executive Director of Learning Leaders, Jane Hafey, with the premiere of the organization's new video. We will introduce you to Time Warner Cable's Connect a Million Minds campaign, being honored by Learning Leaders here today for its tremendous efforts in engaging young people in these STEM subjects. The event will also pay tribute to a very special Learning Leaders volunteer for her 40 years of unparalleled service. And as the final highlight, we are delighted to welcome the wonderful Cynthia Nixon, right here, who will be interviewing New York City Schools Chancellor Carmen Farina. Right here. The Chancellor will give us a unique insight into her vision and plans for public education in our city. I would like to take this opportunity to say a very important thank you to all of the sponsors of the 2014 luncheon, especially our learning visionary sponsor, Time Warner Cable, my bosses. Our learning, we'll get a round of applause for them. Our learning innovation sponsor, Skadden Arps, Slate, Marr, and Flom, who incidentally, my cousin once worked at your, where's your table? Where's the Skadden Arps table? My cousin was once the personal trainer at the fitness club in your building. It's a her. You know her. And I never knew that it was Marr. I always thought it was Meager, as probably everyone else. And a special thank you to our Learning Leaders sponsors, Nancy and Hart Fessenden, Ellen and George Needham, and Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison for helping to make this event possible. Thank you all, and thank you to everyone for your support. So, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce our first speaker, Chair of the Learning Leaders Board of Trustees. He has dedicated more than 20 years of service as a trustee of the organization and as a Learning Leaders volunteer. Please join me in welcoming Jeremy Koch.
Thank you, and greetings, everyone. It's always great to get a room full of people together who share an interest in New York City public schools, and Learning Leaders is very proud to be able to have a forum like this, which I think this is the 4th year in a row that we've done this. So greetings and thank you for being here. Jane Hafey, our executive director, asked that I use my time today to talk a little bit about why I personally am so committed to learning leaders. There are many reasons, of course, but since my time is limited, I'm just going to limit myself to just three of what I feel are the most compelling reasons for being a supporter of learning leaders. The first is the central element of our mission, which is family engagement. If you talk to people involved in education reform, there are many different points of view about what are the key levers that make a difference in student success. But virtually everyone agrees on the importance of family engagement. Research has shown over and over that if a child's family is invested in that student's educational success, that child does better in school. But the reality is that many families, especially those whose parents don't themselves have a strong educational background, don't have access to the information and knowledge that they need to effectively support their own kids. And that's where Learning Leaders comes in. Every day, our volunteer programs bring family members of students into schools in active, productive, and useful ways. We recruit these volunteers, we train them, and we place them in situations where they can make a difference in the quality of life and the quality of work that takes place in the school. That's great for the school, but it's also great at fostering increased family engagement, because the training and exposure that these volunteers get plays a fundamental role in educating the families on how to provide support and encouragement for their kids at home. Learning Leaders also reaches beyond just our volunteers. For those parents who don't have the time to actively volunteer, Learning Leaders now conducts over 300 workshops every year to provide guidance on how parents can be more supportive of their own kids' educational efforts at home. The bottom line is that no one does family engagement on the scale and with the commitment that Learning Leaders does. And with almost 60 years of experience, I'm confident that there's no one out there who does it better. The second element of Learning Leaders' work that I want to talk about a little bit is our business model and the notion of return on investment. Anyone who supports a nonprofit organization understandably wants to know that they're getting value for their financial commitment. And that's good for Learning Leaders, because a central element of our business model is the ability to leverage the efforts of our large volunteer resource. Think about it. We have a staff of about 20 paid professionals, not so big. At the same time, we have a virtual army of volunteers, roughly 5,000. So the leverage is enormous. And when you do the math, we estimate that every dollar we spend on staff and infrastructure is multiplied 5 times over by the work of our volunteers. So for all of you discriminating donors out there, I want to assure you that you're not only making a difference in the lives of New York City's public school children, you're also getting a remarkable value for your philanthropic investment. The last thing I want to talk about just briefly is what it's like to be a volunteer. I've been a board member, as was said, for over 20 years, but it's only in the last 5 years or so that I've actually started to actively volunteer in a school. And I have to tell you, my volunteer work has been an absolutely wonderful experience on many levels. For one thing, I totally enjoy the kids, and I find the process of working one-on-one or in small groups to be both fun and intellectually stimulating. I also enjoy just being in the school, which I have found to be a very positive and welcoming environment. Administrators and faculty alike have been extremely appreciative of my presence in the school, and I am constantly getting encouragement and positive reinforcement and feedback on the work that I'm doing. But the most remarkable aspect of this experience is what I get out of it psychically. There's really nothing more energizing than working with a student and knowing that you've had a positive impact on some academic challenge that they've been faced with. It can give you a powerful natural high, and I absolutely recommend it. So if there's anyone out there who has a few free hours in their week and wants to do something very uplifting and rewarding while also making a difference in the life of a student, I suggest that you talk to Beth Wells or to one of the other Learning Leaders staffers out there today about becoming a volunteer. We'd love to have you. Now, before I step down, I also want to say a few quick thank yous. First, I want to thank the co-chairs of our event committee, Ellen and George Needham, Correa and Alexis Mijas, and Mark and Melissa Lawrence Applebaum. Thank you for your hard work. I want to thank the staff of Learning Leaders, and most especially Catherine Brandley and Julia Gilliam, without whom this event would not be possible. And I, too, want to thank all of our sponsors for your generous support. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're deeply grateful for all that you do for Learning Leaders. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeremy. It is great to hear about the important work that Learning Leaders does to support pre-K through 8th grade education in our city. All right, we would now like to introduce our honoree, Time Warner Cable's Connect a Million Minds. Sharing a vision with Learning Leaders of educational excellence, Connect a Million Minds aims to inspire the next generation of problem solvers by connecting young people to the wonders of science, technology, engineering, and math. Launched in 2009, the 5-year, $100 million cash and in-kind philanthropic initiative addresses America's declining proficiency in these STEM subjects, which puts our children at risk of not competing successfully in a global economy. Time Warner Cable launched this initiative in conjunction with President Obama's Educate to Innovate campaign, designed to improve the participation and performance of America's students in STEM. Over the past 5 years, Time Warner Cable has made good on its commitment to inspire young people to pursue STEM through national and local nonprofit partnerships, original public service announcements, and a wide range of unique activations, such as STEM in sports, that merges STEM with popular culture. To see CAM in action, let's watch this short video.
Today we made these really cool paper airplanes. It was really, really fun.
Really excited to learn new things for science and math.
I loved building things, ramps, bridges, and things like that. It was the best thing in the workshop.
Math and science are far more than just subjects at school. That's why Time Warner Cable created Connect a Million Minds, to show young people that math and science can be fun and lead to a career of their dreams.
Education is the foundation and building block. It's so important for kids to stay in school and take their studies really seriously because it sets them up for a successful life.
When we first came in, they were kind of leery of what we were here for, why we were doing this. Science is boring. There's nothing fun to be learned about science. And then by the end, now they're, sitting in their coats and hoping to be a scientist in the future and stuff like that.
Operation Breakthrough is a nonprofit organization located in Kansas City. It was really cool to see just how committed Time Warner Cable was to making an impact in the community through science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Pretty much all the kids that go here are from the urban environment. They're not able to experience those type of things.
I'm here with Connect a Million Minds on behalf of Time Warner Cable to get these kids excited, but you gotta make it fun for them. You gotta do different activities other than the monotony of the everyday sitting down, do 2 + 2.
I think the more that kids grasp it, realize how much math and science and all that there is in, all professional sports, I think it's something that, will help them want to learn it in school.
Right down the middle, that's what I'm talking about. Made it look easy, made it look easy.
This partnership helps the community. We're creating a really great and a strong community of young writers and young scientists. So it's a fantastic win-win for both.
Kids' imaginations are as active as ever, and they can really get into these things. And in the right environments, they can latch onto really foreign concepts and make them real.
Having it tie seamlessly together in that way, and having students be engaged in hands-on things and interacting with these different experiments and activities is a really important way to sort of get these concepts across and really make a really natural, genuine connection between STEM and writing.
To present the award for leadership in education and the media, please welcome Learning Leaders trustee Ellen Needham.
Learning Leaders is delighted to honor Time Warner Cable's Connect a Million Minds, as we recognize their commitment to promoting STEM education for our nation's students. We at Learning Leaders are fortunate to have Time Warner Cable's Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary, Mark Lawrence Apfelbaum, on our Board of Trustees. Go, Mark. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Mark first recognized the synergies between the work of Learning Leaders and Time Warner Cable's campaign. Both organizations share a dedication to giving children the building blocks for success at an early age. They realize the opportunity of creating lifelong learners by engaging children in their own learning and giving them dedicated attention and support. We understand the need for collaboration between educators, parents, and other passionate adults, and we put an emphasis on the importance of a well-rounded education. We are pleased that Ellen East, Executive Vice President and Chief Communications Officer for Time Warner Cable, is here today to accept our award. Ellen provides strategic counsel on company-wide public relations, corporate communications, and industry affairs. I'm honored to present Learning Leaders Innovation in Education in the Media Award to Time Warner Cable's Connect a Million Minds. Please join me in congratulating Ellen East of Time Warner Cable.
Thank you, Ellen, for that lovely intro, and I want to thank Adam for all the support he's given to Connect a Million Minds over the last 5 years. And thank you to Learning Leaders for selecting Time Warner Cable and Connect a Million Minds for this wonderful honor. We launched Connect a Million Minds, or CAM as we call it, less than 5 years ago in concert with President Obama's Educate to Innovate campaign. Educate to Innovate was designed to move American students from the middle to the top of the pack in science and math achievement within the next decade. The cable business was built on a strong foundation of technology and innovation, which requires proficiency in math and science. We get to see the power of those skills in action every day at Time Warner Cable, and we appreciate how critical they are. So we embraced the President's challenge and set a goal to connect 1 million young people to the wonders of science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, in 5 years. Using our media assets, we created awareness of the issue to inspire students to develop the STEM skills they need to become the problem solvers of tomorrow. We launched a website that connected parents to STEM opportunities in their neighborhoods, made grants to support nonprofit groups that bring stimulating, high-quality, and affordable after-school STEM learning to students, engaged our 52,000 employees to volunteer their time at community events like science fairs and robotics competitions, and activated CAM across the country with community-specific programs and partnerships. Already this year, our employees have volunteered thousands of hours in our communities, and in the coming months, we have another 80 STEM-related events going on in our communities. So clearly, the Time Warner Cable team is passionate about this area. 5 years ago, a million minds seemed a million miles away. But 2 days ago, we did it, along with our partners and the public. Thank you. Along with our partners and the public, we have connected 1 million young minds to STEM, 5 months ahead of schedule. We've come full circle with President Obama announcing our milestone at the White House Science Fair on Tuesday of this week. As Adam and Ellen both said, Time Warner Cable and Learning Leaders share a common goal: to engage families and volunteers within our communities to support the education of our children. That makes this great honor even more special, and in turn, we salute and thank you for the impact you're having on the youth of New York. Thank you.
It's funny, I was reminded by Tessie Topol. Where is she? Right there, who works with Ellen East. We were at a Connect a Million Minds event last year, or a couple years ago, and I said, half busting her chops, half honestly curious, what happens when we hit 1 million minds that we've connected? She just kind of scolded me because she focus on the task at hand. And now we've hit it. So now to bust her chops even more, I'm trying to think if we should change the name, which would screw up our logo everywhere. Connect 2 million minds. Still counting. Well, thank you, Ellen, for clearing that up. All right. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Executive Director of Learning Leaders and proud public school parent, Jane Hafey. Welcome, Jane.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here. In my role as Executive Director of Learning Leaders, I end up thinking a lot about my own childhood and my own education. And I'm reminded of the excellent teachers I had at PS 29, at Intermediate School 293, and at Brooklyn Tech. Brooklyn Tech, did I get somebody? Yay, okay. Teachers who taught me many things, but most importantly taught me how to learn. I also think about the fact that my educational base was equally formed with my teachers and my family, and mentors in the larger community who encouraged me, advised me, sometimes shoved me along in my educational experience. But being part of Learning Leaders also makes me think, sometimes more often, because it's more immediate, of being a parent of children in the public school system. Right, so I'm invested deeply in that way. And I just went through the high school application process with my son. Whoever cheered over there is going to cheer for this too, because he's going to high school. And I know that I'm not getting an award today, but I really feel, having gone through that process, that maybe I should. It is complicated, and I needed support, I needed information, I needed network. And that is really the key. So through those experiences of my own life, I see myself reflected in the Learning Leaders students that we work with all over the city, and those parents, and all the community members that come together to support the children in their schools and in their neighborhoods. We're so broad and we're so grassroots that it's really pretty incredible. So I'm excited to, I guess I just wanted to say about those volunteers and those parents that through our programs and our workshops together, that we're really strengthening what I remember about my own education, the school-home community links that really give the educational foundation that kids need and deserve. So I'm excited to show our new video, and I want to thank the team at Outsider Films for working with us really beautifully on this process. They're a great team. And the wonderful school communities, I won't, spoiler alert, you'll meet them in the video, and you'll get to meet some of them here today. But so many of you know Learning Leaders really well, and this video will reinforce what you know about us, but many of you are new friends, so I'm especially excited to share it with you. Long and new friends alike, I think that you will enjoy it. So here we go.
We know our schools face significant challenges. Not all students are getting the education they need. Family engagement is a critical part of the solution, but many families are unsure of how to support their children's learning. So what does it take?
I'm Yvette Torres-Schwartz. This is PS 261 in Brooklyn. You're not just Johnny's mom or dad, you're like this person that's helping other children, and other children trust you and they're looking for you to help. This is my school and I'm leading the way to a better education.
I'm Hua Nengziada. I'm a school volunteer.
现在我们念下一首。
This is PS 184 Shuangwen School in the Lower East Side. This is my school and I lead by advancing bilingual education.
I'm Nora McCauley and I conduct a book talk group.
last year I wasn't really into books that much, and talking about them gets me into the books more, so I want to finish the books.
This is PS 261 in Brooklyn. This is my school, and I'm leading the way to literacy.
Since 1956, Learning Leaders has been on the front lines in our public schools. Today, community and family volunteers support teachers to foster children's educational development.
My name is Richard Lopez. Definitely the parents take a lot from the program, a lot of professional experience. They end up getting jobs in the education field, which is great. We have quite a few parent coordinators in our districts that were once learning leaders.
Well, I was a learning leader when my children were in elementary school, and it was one of the most wonderful experiences I ever had. It takes a village to raise a child, and that's what the learning leaders demonstrate in coming every day and doing whatever it is we ask them to do. The children love seeing them in the school, the teachers love having them in the classroom, and as a community we embrace that.
My son is now 4 years out of school and I'm still here, and it is truly amazing the community that we have here, and learning leaders help us put it even tighter together.
The most important quality that needs to be present in a school building for children to really be able to learn is a sense of community. Which ones are your favorite?
When you actually compare these books together, they're all different in different ways. Each of them has like a whole backstory.
Learning Leaders is a unique organization that enables parents to support their children's educational experience by increasing their knowledge, skills, and self-confidence.
Good job. What's your name?
My name is Guy Rivas. At Learning Leaders, I'm the Director of Programs. We just keep up to date with the research that tells us how best to not only teach adults, but to teach kids. So parents come to our workshops or get our training, they have a clearer picture and a clearer understanding of what the students are learning in school.
Because as we know, with the changing standards, there's more expectations of non-fiction reading as well as non-fiction writing.
Learning Leaders is making a real difference in 300 city schools in all 5 boroughs, with 8,000 community and family members supporting children's education. 85% of our schools serve high-poverty communities that have the fewest resources. We help break down the barriers that parents face and build an educational foundation that will last the rest of a child's life.
We believe every child, regardless of economic circumstances, deserves an excellent education. Learning Leaders empowers parents, supports educators, and inspires our children to keep this promise alive.
This is PS 261.
This is PS 184, Schwann School,
Staten Island.
Escuela 90. This is PS 94 in the Bronx.
I'm a learning leader.
I'm a learning
Soy
leader.
una learning leader.
I am learning leader.
And I'm a learning leader.
My name is Jane Hafey. I'm a learning leader. This is New York City, and these are our schools.
So what does it take? It takes you. You can make a difference. Support Learning Leaders.
So I hope that gives you a sense of the power of learning leaders in every pocket of New York City, in every school and neighborhood around our 5 boroughs, of all that's happening. And I hope it gives you a sense of what it takes. I want to talk a little bit more about what does it take. So it takes us $5,000 to provide the screening, the training, the resource materials, and the year-round support to empower and enable volunteer tutors, library assistants, enrichment leaders, like you saw the book talk group leaders at one school. It takes $2,500 to provide a series of workshops to families at a school on fostering literacy, very simple but powerful strategies parents can use at home, or supporting academic success in the middle grades, or navigating the high school application process. With these investments, we see exponential returns for schools and families, and ultimately, obviously, our whole motivation, our city's young people. So what it takes is all of you. We thank you for being here today. I hope you will partner with us by making a contribution to Learning Leaders. There are cards on the table, so please feel welcome to use one of those. You can also send us an email. I believe, is that right? That technology is working, Adam. We got it. People can send us an email, and we'll follow up with you. So we want to make it as easy for you as possible. Just please give as generously as you can, and I really thank you for being here today, for all of your support as we go forward with our work in the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. That was moving. Clearly, I agree that video and images are the best way to convey a story. So that was a great video. I'm sure we all agree on the importance of building positive school-family partnerships and bringing community resources into the schools to ensure that our children get the best possible support. I hope that we can make a significant contribution to funding Learning Leaders programs here today. I have on here we're going to take a short break for lunch. But I've been watching you guys eat the whole time I'm up here. Should we push through or take a break? I'm told to push through. Let's push through. Hello again, everyone. We will continue our celebration this afternoon by recognizing a very special Learning Leaders community volunteer. Here to introduce her is Learning Leaders Director of Programs, Guy Rivas, who brings his experience as a teacher and school administrator to lead the organization's family engagement initiatives. Welcome, Guy.
Thank you, Adam. I'm so pleased to be here today to recognize the exceptional dedication of a remarkable woman who stands out even among our most amazing group of volunteers. She has been with Learning Leaders for almost 40 years, working one-to-one with over 200 students to overcome their struggles with literacy. She currently inspires a team of 7 Learning Leaders and is respected and valued by the teachers, students, and families of PS 96 in East Harlem. She is the wonderful Kathy McGoldrick. Kathy joined Learning Leaders in the 1970s when the organization was called the New York City School Volunteer Program. A retired secondary school teacher with an interest in early education, she jumped at the chance to get involved when a friend already volunteering for Learning Leaders in East Harlem asked her to help out. Kathy immersed herself in the early intervention program and has been an integral part of the team ever since, moving with it to PS 96 over 8 years ago. In collaboration with teachers, Kathy and the other Learning Leaders work with first and second graders who are identified as at risk of falling behind in literacy, many of whom don't speak English at home. The Learning Leaders use a structured program with effective and fun activities. The result is a tremendous improvement in the students' skills and confidence over the year. In addition to working with children, Kathy is the volunteer program coordinator, a volunteer mentor, a resource librarian, and Learning Leaders liaison. The warm atmosphere and success of the program are the reason that in the first weeks of the new school year, when the Learning Leaders arrive at a classroom to pick up their assigned students, several hands shoot up and voices call out, "Take me, take me." Kathy's fellow volunteers feel privileged to work with her and agree that she is pure magic, praising her generosity, patience, respect, and optimism. They tell us that her pride in each child's accomplishments is easy to see in the smiles and love they share with her, and say that this translates to students who not only experience the joy of books and the mystery of language, but feel special and motivated. Amidst all this, Kathy is incredibly modest and always points out that the success is the work of the entire team, who she is so grateful to have worked with. After 40 years, Kathy has decided that it is finally time to retire as a Learning Leader, telling us that it has been a huge joy and a privilege. She will, of course, be greatly missed by all the children, teachers, and volunteers at PS 96, as well as by the wider school community and all of us at Learning Leaders. Kathy, please join me up here to accept this Commitment to Excellence in Volunteering Award as a token of our appreciation for your tremendous dedication during your 40 years or 12,000 hours as a Learning Leader. You are an inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, Kathy McGoldrick.
How wonderful. How wonderful. I leave with tears. I leave with tears. I really, truly want to say that the little program we run up in East Harlem is so life-giving to these students. And this program would go nowhere without the amazing energy of the team. So hats off to Paula and to Brenda. Hats off to Virginia. Hats off to Richard and Rita. Hats off to you all. Betsy, for sure. So really, they do an amazing job. And we all, as a team, want to really pay a debt of thanks to you people back on Maiden Lane. You really have been an amazing support to us. You bond us. Beth Wells, you bring us new tutors, you train them. So many, many thanks to you all. And Jane Heafy, really, you hold this all together. Oh, there you are. You hold this all together, this amazing, courageous work. So many, many, many thanks. And I will miss you dearly. Yes.
Congratulations, Kathy. Very well-deserved accolade. You are an inspiration among volunteers, and we are delighted to be able to honor you here today. Another round of applause. All right. I should have taken a drink before this one. I'm about to introduce two women with absurdly long lists of accomplishments. It is now my very great honor to introduce two special guests who we are privileged to have with us this afternoon for a thought-provoking conversation on educational issues. Cynthia Nixon made her film debut in Little Darlings at 12 years old, and her Broadway debut at 14 in The Philadelphia Story. That's like these kids who I meet that do these tech things, and they're doing these things at 12 that I can't do at almost 40 years old. Makes me feel a little bit insignificant. Since then, she's appeared in over 40 plays, countless films, and television shows, and received an Emmy, Grammy, and Tony Awards, best known for her role as Miranda on HBO's Sex and the City. You've heard of it? Nixon will appear in Life Itself alongside Diane Keaton and Morgan Freeman and Josh Mann's indie film James White. She recently wrapped Nicole Beckwith's drama Stockholm, Pennsylvania, opposite Saoirse Ronan. Did I pronounce that right? Yes. I looked it up. And appeared in a recurring role on NBC's Hannibal. And where I looked it up, it said there were like 40 different ways that people pronounce her name, but she gave two, actually, that were proper. All right, this fall, she will appear in the Broadway revival of Tom Stoppard's The Real Thing as Charlotte, the mother of the character she created in the same play exactly 30 years ago. Is that right? In real life, you have a real life? In real life, Cynthia spends a good portion of her off time fighting for funding for New York public schools and for LGBT equality. She lives in downtown Manhattan with her wife, Christine Marinoni. Did I pronounce that right? What a roll. And their three children. Now on to Chancellor Carmen Farina, who was appointed Chancellor of the New York City Department of Education in January of this year, making her responsible for the largest and most diverse public school system in the nation, educating 1.1 million children each year. Yeah. God bless. I have trouble with the 3 in my household. Over the past 40 years, Farina has worked in virtually every capacity, from teacher to district superintendent to deputy chancellor, and has distinguished herself as an innovative educator committed to improving the lives of students, teachers, and principals. Her people-oriented management style, which emphasizes communication and collaboration, has inspired educators throughout the 5 boroughs. As schools chancellor, Farina is committed to increasing professional development by encouraging teachers and principals to visit one another and share their successes, boosting social studies, science, and arts instruction, and making the schools more welcoming to parents. She believes that, I like this phrase, the way you turn it, she believes that the school system change must happen with people and not to people, and that parents, teachers, and school leaders must all be part of the conversation if students are to succeed. We're not done yet. Farina is a Brooklyn native, a daughter of Spanish immigrants. She was the first person in her family to graduate from college. She earned a bachelor's degree in education from Brooklyn College and 3 master's degrees from NYU, New York University, Brooklyn College, and Pace University. Farinya is co-author with Laura Koch of A School Leader's Guide to Excellence, Collaborating Our Way to Better Schools. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me extend a warm welcome to Cynthia Nixon and Chancellor Carmen Farinya.
I think you get an A+ for that introduction. Thank you. So, Chancellor Farinya, thank you for coming today, and thank you for spending a few minutes discussing your role in the New York City public school system. So I'd like, since we're here at a Learning Leaders Luncheon, I'd like to start. See, I'm an actor, so I know about not upstaging people. You've known about Learning Leaders for a number of years, and I would wonder if you could say a few words about your experience with the organization and its work supporting the public school system, and what have you seen as the greatest impact of the program?
I first knew Learning Leaders as a principal. I was principal of PS6 on the Upper East Side for 10 years. And as such, that was my introduction to Learning Leaders. And they were very crucial in my building because at that time, class size was actually very large. And in order for many of my students to be able to get some individual attention, it was the Learning Leaders program that was able to help us. And they actually initiated, at that time we were doing junior books, and they were the ones who were trained and came into the school and did it with the children. But I think the most powerful experience I had with Learning Leaders was when I was Deputy Chancellor. As Deputy Chancellor, there was instituted a mandated promotional policy, and we were faced almost overnight with the possibility that a lot of children would not be getting intervention services and extra support. And I actually called Learning Leaders at the time and asked if they would consider actually training all the learning leaders in the city, which were a couple hundred, but it might even have been thousands, in a program called Learning Great Leaps, which is an intervention program, and the director at the time said yes. And we were able to, almost within 3 weeks, be able to send an army into the schools to work one-on-one. It's a program that takes 5 minutes a day, but we had a commitment of an hour a day over a period of weeks, and within 6 months, I would say we were able to saturate citywide the volunteers from Learning Leaders. So I really give them a lot of credit for being able to respond to the needs of the moment, and I certainly expect going forward. It wasn't in my bio, but it's something you should know. Jane Hafey, who's your director, was my 4th grade student. So I expect to be able to work even more collaboratively with Jane as we move forward, because we're certainly going to need a lot of support, and this is an organization that I know can immediately offer the services that we need.
Thank you. So, as Adam mentioned, you're leading largest school system in the nation. Could you take a few minutes and describe your vision for our schools and what you think the biggest challenges we face are, and what you really are focusing on and hoping to accomplish in, say, your first year?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, obviously, is the size. And the mayor keeps trying to remind me what percentage of the budget I'm in charge of and how many kids. And you really have to stop looking at the size and look at everything as a microcosm and how many people are there to support you. I would say, certainly at this time, the biggest challenge in January was restoring a sense of dignity and respect to educators, which I think had been missing over the past few years. And I think that's really been largely accomplished. I must have met with every single principal in the city, almost every single AP, and I've been doing the rounds of boroughs for teachers. And in meeting with everyone, it's about how I believe educators are the most important, and they also are able to make some decisions on their own. Not everything has to be micromanaged. We've also gone out at night to just about every district in the city to have town hall meetings. I have been in every borough many times, And part of that is to let parents know also that they're going to be heard and they're going to be listened to. And I think that's really, really important. My major initiative is middle schools. And for those of you who haven't figured out your niche yet as volunteers, I really, really would love for more people to volunteer in middle schools and work with students, certainly in STEM, but also in just giving middle school students the feeling that someone cares about them one-on-one. They need mentoring, particularly in areas where students have a lot of ability and are not applying to high schools in a way, the same way you talk about applying to middle schools, but how do we apply to high schools? And a lot of parents are not, knowledgeable enough, and it goes across socioeconomics. It is a puzzle, and we're going to try to make it easier, but I certainly would love more volunteers in middle schools, and more male volunteers. I have to be honest. I'm trying to have male-only days in schools where the testosterone is visible and you can feel it, because there are a lot of males across the board who just don't think school is cool, and we want males to come in and say it has made a difference.
Well, I was going to ask you about middle schools later on, but since you brought it up, let me delve a little deeper. I myself am the parent of a middle schooler, and as I've heard Bill and Shirlane say many times, they are the recovering parents of two former middle schoolers. Could you talk a little bit about, I think that there is I hear often we feel like we know what the components of a really good elementary school are and what the components of a really good high school are, and that middle school remains somewhat elusive. And can you talk about why that has seemed tricky in the past, and what's important, and also maybe say a few words about the mayor's plan to provide after school and how that fits in?
Well, I think what's most important is that teachers go to school to become high school teachers, and they go to school to become elementary school teachers. Not everybody goes to school to become a middle school teacher. Somehow you may end up there, but it's not a direct path. And as a former staff developer, to me, the most engaging age, although if you're a parent, that's when you want to send them to boarding school, but seventh graders are the challenge. I just met with middle school principals this morning, and I said I think anyone who teaches middle school deserves a place in heaven permanently, because they are a challenge. But when they really get it, they get it in a way that nobody else does. They really become committed. So to me, when I visit middle schools, and up till now I have visited over 50 middle schools since January and expect to do a lot more, I look for active engagement. I don't want classrooms where kids are quietly listening to a teacher who's preaching. There's a difference between teaching and preaching. Preaching is when you do all the talking and no one listens. They look like they're listening, but they're not paying attention. And I really want to see kids talking to each other. I want to see evidence of student writing and student work all over the building. I have principals who say to me, we're not like elementary school. And I usually say, well, that's too bad, because they really get it right most of the time. And I really want them to understand that kids come to school and the environment needs to look attractive. It shouldn't look like a jail or hospital corridor. It should look like an interesting, engaging place. I also look more now for evidence of technology aligned to the curriculum. I want to see iPads and other things in the classroom being used, because it's the nature of an adolescent to use these things, so why not use them in an engaging way? I want to see the arts. I have to be honest with you, I think in a lot of schools, for some reason, they felt it was a frill, and I will tell you that many kids go to school the days that they're going to have certain programs, and certainly in a lot of the schools have heard me say this, so now I'm generally greeted at the door with the band, or an orchestra. The other day was a full orchestra in a school in Queens. And they somehow or other mysteriously, when I'm coming, always seem to have an art show ready to go. But these things are not frills, and for adolescents, they are often a special talent they have, and it's also what keeps the kids coming back. The extended day in middle school is very clearly a way of saying that if kids have a passion and they want to form a different community, one of the things after school should provide middle schools are arts programs. Theater, to me, is crucial in middle school. If you have a school with lots of English language learners, their ability to read a play and put it on, or to sing songs, that's a great way to learn a language. It doesn't all have to be taught, directly. I think the extended day, we also want to make sure we have more phys ed in the extended day. I want to see more independent reading, which somehow has gotten lost in the last few years. But also, if you're involved in arts programs and phys ed programs, you form a different community for yourself. So a child who may not be the top student, but is in a school, in a program after school where kids are good at what he or she does, those are going to be kids that they're going to talk to and they're going to be with. And I think being after school is going to really be a very powerful thing. We have almost 250 schools that have applied for the extended day, in addition to the ones that already had it. And I'm really excited. We just started our concert series at Tweed. We're trying to make Tweed a happy place, you'll be happy to know. And 2 o'clock every Friday, and if you're in the neighborhood, please drop by. We have a concert series, and we are inviting bands and choruses from different schools from the city to come. And next year, we're going to start Broadway Junior, excerpts from Broadway plays, and have different middle school kids come and perform. So we're very excited about that.
And can you say a few words about the other signature initiative, the pre-K, and how it's going, and why you think it's important, and why you think it can make a difference?
Well, the mayor wouldn't forgive me if I didn't mention UPK, but it really is crucial. We know that the most formative years in a child's life are the ages 7 and under. And yet we're not taking full advantage of those years to ensure that kids have a full, rich education. And particularly because we have so many children in our city for whom English is not a native language, the sooner they go into a program where language development, particularly vocabulary development, is crucial, is very, very important. And I also feel that UPK gives parents an opportunity, particularly all-day UPK, if they want to go work, that they know the kids are in a safe environment. It's also a learning environment. English is not my first language. I started school speaking only Spanish, and to me, had I started a year or two earlier, I think that really would have been another step up that I would have had. So to me, the more we can help the students and the earlier we can get them, I think it's wonderful. But I want to stress that I see UPK as a place where there's singing and dancing and art and movement and blocks. This is not about another opportunity to start kindergarten a year earlier or first grade. This is an opportunity for kids to really socialize.
The Huffington Post called you the ultimate insider because you have come to your post having formerly been a student, an educator, an administrator, and a former deputy chancellor. So as the first educator in quite a long time to hold your position, can you say how your background affects what you do in your role as chancellor?
I'm not sure they meant it as a compliment, but I'm going to take it as that. I think it's crucial, if you're going to direct people on what to do, that you at least have some idea of what it is they do. And I do think that people listen a lot more. And particularly in education, we have so much jargon. I almost call it alphabet soup. And when you're using expressions that you can actually know what they mean, and so does your audience. But I think the most powerful thing about being an educator, having spent 3.5 hours yesterday testifying before the city council, that when they ask you a question, you can be very specific. And you can not only say, this is what I'm doing, but this is why I'm doing it. And when you're going out to speak to audiences, like I did this morning to assistant principals and principals, that you can be very explicit in what you expect them to do and see. I believe in theory. I've certainly read enough about it. But I also believe that you have to be pragmatic. I want to say, this is what I want to see in your schools. This is why I want to see it. And I think people listen to that. As a principal, my first year, I had a lot of teachers who decided that I was just going to be there for a fleeting moment, so they didn't have to listen to what my vision for school was. So they kind of listened to me with their arms folded in my first faculty conference. I had come from warm and gentle Brooklyn to Manhattan, where they kind of felt, well, you know, we do it better, so why listen? And I dared my staff, and I said, okay, starting within a month, I'll come to your classrooms and I'll do a demonstration lesson. And then after I teach a lesson, If you don't think that's the way to teach, then you can argue with me. And I think within a year, people either got on board or decided maybe there was another school they'd be happier in, and it was okay by me. But the reality is, how do you ask people to do things if you're not able to lead the charge? And I think that really has been probably one of the reasons why so many principals in particular are moving in a very much faster pace than they might have been.
You've just, I understand, started something called not Learning Leaders, but Learning Partners. And I wonder if you could tell us what that is.
I'm really excited about this initiative. It started because, again, middle schools. I feel that too much of change in our system and across our country is mandated. People are told, do this, this, and this. They have checklists. They even have things timed to every minute, 2 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that. I decided that most of the answers to a lot of our issues are really already in our schools, in our good classrooms. So I started visiting schools where I knew there was several criteria in place. They had energetic, dynamic principals who were still passionate about their job, in some cases after many years. I also found that these principals had really chosen really good teachers who were equally passionate and loved working in those schools, regardless of where their schools are located, because these schools are all over the place. And also that they had a strong commitment to parent engagement, and that all of them had some feature that was unique to that school. So we asked about 8 schools that they would be learning partners. Learning partners means that you become the host to at least 2 other schools who choose you. They come and visit, they see if what you're doing is something they want to emulate and replicate, and we would do this across the city. We're not going to do it for schools that are nearby geographically. So I'll give you an example. IS 88 in Brooklyn, we partner with a school in Queens and a school in Staten Island. And we partner with these schools because the other 2 schools had phenomenal leaders, because these are not struggling schools. Not only were they phenomenal leaders, but one of the principals was a first-year principal, and the other principal had been there a substantial amount of time. And working with and this is MS 34 and IS 5 in Queens. And these 3 principals not only bonded, but their assistant principals bonded, their teachers bonded, the teachers moved back and forth from schools. And I just found out this morning that there is a teacher in IS 88 who lives in Staten Island who would find it easier if she worked in Staten Island. And the principal in Staten Island has a teacher who really wants to move out of the classroom to be a literacy coach, but he doesn't have that position, and they're going to switch teachers. Now, this is a very bureaucratic system. We don't generally switch people, but in Learning Partners, anything's possible. So we now have, starting in September, 74 schools that are all going to be working with each other. We do not have a lot of rules about this. We let the partners decide, by and large, what they want to share with each other. And now I understand they're even sharing PTA presidents and SLTs to go back and forth and see how they can learn from each other. So I'm really, really excited because I do think we learn by doing and by being present in other people's buildings.
So you've identified 4 pillars as the foundation of successful schools. Number 1, which you mentioned right away when you started, respect for teachers. 2, bolster student achievement through the Common Core standards. 3, family engagement. And 4, increased engagement with community partners. So can you talk about number 3? Can you talk about what your goals are and what your plans are for increasing family engagement in the school?
Well, I think the most important thing in family engagement that we did is that if you look at the 4 pillars, and I don't expect any of you to read the UFT contract, but in looking at the major aspects of the new UFT contract, every one of those pillars is embedded in the contract. And we have added 40 minutes per week, which has never happened in the history of New York, for teachers and principals to communicate with parents. It's part of the time that's being put into the school day. It's after school, but the commitment is that several things are going to happen. We're asking in September and October to principals make it a priority to meet with parents who are either new immigrants to the country or who kids have IEPs. In many schools, they wait till mid-year, and by then it's too late. We're also asking principals, and this is where I think being a principal helps, to make, and this may sound to some of you very simple, but it hasn't been in New York, to make appointments to meet with every parent for a minimum of 15 minutes during parent-teacher conferences. I do not want to see long lines outside of classrooms. I do not want to see, people waiting to hear someone else. No, by appointment over a period of a month, because the time is built in, that every parent knows they have that. And we're going to do workshops with parents on what are the right questions to ask, and what do you do when you get the question, and the answer is not what you want to hear. There's going to be a lot of training with parents. We're also holding full-day parent conferences, which actually, Jane, you're going to be part of this Saturday. We're doing all-day conferences by grade specific. We did one for high school, and one of the workshops, for example, is how to help your child get financial aid to college. This Saturday, we're doing one for parents for elementary schools, and then we're doing one for middle schools in June. Our hope is to get a lot more information out there to parents in as many different ways as possible. We've also started all-day training for parent coordinators to make them a much more important, vital part of the system going forward. They certainly, when I was deputy chancellor, I used to meet with them all the time. I expect to go back to that. So I see parents as very important. We're also offering principals the opportunity, if they want to give their parents ESL classes, that they can do so, and we already have a program going in that respect.
Thank you. Can you talk about how growing up your own parents impacted your education, and can you talk about how your experience as a daughter, but also as a mother and also as a grandmother, informs your perspective as an educator?
Well, growing up, my mother never fully learned to speak English well. It was a long time ago. My dad did. He went to work. He was proficient in English, but their education had been stopped relatively young in their lives. But in terms of education being valued at home, my dad was probably the most educated man I know. And because he left Spain due to political reasons, politics was always very important in our dining room table, as was history. I love history. And you remember that, right, Jane? We learned history all day long. But I do think when I went to school, I learned, or rather, because of the conversation, I would argue with my teachers. And by the way, I went to parochial elementary school, not something highly recommended in terms of arguing with your teachers. But my father would say, don't let them tell you that. That's not what really happened. Let me explain it to you. And then I would go to school and I would say it to the teacher, and she says, where did you learn that? At one point, it was a very communistic thing to say, certainly about dictators in Spain. But I really learned that I think having an opinion, as long as you had some evidence for that opinion, was very important. I think also one of the things that stayed with me, why I think family engagement is so important, that when I had to go to parent-teacher conferences and my mother went with me, I did all the translating. And I know it made her feel probably not so great, but boy, did I get a good report from my teacher. You know, Mom, everything I'm doing is wonderful. So I really want to change that culture. As a parent, I also say, and I just said the story this morning, going to high school parent-teacher conferences, I sat in on my older daughter, and I walked into the classroom, and the first thing the teacher said to me, and what seat does your child sit in? Because he did, it was a big school, they knew the kids by seat numbers, and I walked out, and I didn't even want to sit and talk to him, because if he was going to look, anything he was going to tell me according to his Delaney book, I could have read on her report card. He didn't know who she was. And that's where I got a lot of the ideas of how we need to change the system. But I think ultimately it's being an abuela, being a grandmother. Because, I sort of, when my kids would come home and complain, I'd say, well, just go with the flow. The teachers, next year will be another year. With my grandchildren, nobody better ever fool around with them, okay? If they come with any complaints whatsoever, tell her, well, let me see what I can do about this. And I do think that that's very important. I think kids need to be happy in school, they need to be confident, and they need to feel good about what they're learning. So a lot of that influences what I do today.
And if you had to characterize what you think the New York City public school system is like for your grandchildren as opposed to what it was like for your children, is there a way you could typify it? Does it seem markedly different to you?
I think it all depends school to school. I would like to think that the one thing that's in common is that most teachers do go into teaching because they want to make a difference. And I think that stays the same everywhere. I think what has varied over the years, and it goes in cycles, is the ability for teachers to somehow make some of their own decisions. And I think, and I go back, to the years when I was a teacher, boy, did we do things differently. We were the only class that was doing a lot of very unusual things. But I think ultimately the confidence the principal had in me to get to the end goal was very important. And I'd like to take us back to that point where principals and teachers work together with a sense of confidence that teaching is a craft, it's a creative experience, and a lot of leeway has to be in the classroom as well as a lot of mandates.
And so, just maybe two more questions. So, now that you're in your 5th month as the head of the system, what achievements to date, or what are the achievements to date for your administration, and what are you the most encouraged by, or are you the most proud of?
Well, I think we have changed the culture in the system at the moment. I think there's a climate that people feel that they can express themselves. I think when I go to, one of the strangest things we just did an all-day Saturday for principals. Almost 1,000 principals show up. When you get an ovation before you speak rather than after you speak, someone is saying, we're glad you're here, and we think you're in the right path. So I think that whole culture and climate thing is really different. I think the UPK initiative certainly is something that we're very proud of, and the fact that, every day I get a new letter or a new email, Carmen, I know you really need another classroom, and I'm up for it. I think the contract, the teacher's contract, I'm very proud of, because I think also the contract says, labor and management can work together. And I think we both went in with the idea we were going to make this work, but the ultimate goal was how we were going to make it better for the kids in New York City, and I do think that is the end goal. And again, I think the focus on middle schools. I really am so encouraged by how many middle school principals are telling me they're making changes in their building so that the kids will have a more personalized instruction.
Talking today to this audience, what would you say to New Yorkers, whether they're public school parents or not? What would you say to people who care about the public school system, and how can they help support success in New York City?
Well, I think, first of all, you're in the right room. I think Learning Leaders is a great place to start, donating money, but also services. Again, for those of you who haven't given time, middle schools now, in particular, it's not just about during the day. There's a lot of things you can do in the evenings and even on weekends. A lot of our schools even have Saturday programs, and I think there's a way to do that. I would say the most important help for most people is to not be naysayers about public education unless you've really walked into a building and actually seen what's happening. I'm taking people on school tours. There's now a new edict at Tweed that, before you make any decisions about schools, at least you should have been in one within the last few years. I have someone today who's running a tour in one of our high schools for a whole group of people. And I do think that it's easy to be an armchair critic, but it's a lot more helpful if people really understood what we were trying to accomplish and how we're accomplishing it. Thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thanks so much.
So I didn't practice that with them. But I have to give the last award of the day, and I even have it here. It's a glass apple for my teacher. But first, thank you both. That was wonderful. It was wonderful to hear. Yes, let's another round of applause. And again, as the different lenses that I look through our schools in all of those different ways, I'm very excited and encouraged about the sense of optimism and positivity that you really shared today, that I know is bred in your bone and is really what you bring to the job. So I just want to, this is personal for me, obviously, as a former student, as a public school parent, and as a New Yorker who wants an excellent education for all kids. You've already met the chancellor. So I want to introduce you to Mrs. Farina, my 4th grade teacher. In Mrs. Farina's class in the 70s, it was different. I have so many memories, and I remember learning the word compassion, which I think I had heard before, probably, hopefully. But we had a very in-depth conversation as a class community about what it meant and what it fit in our lives and what role that had. we learned about ancient Egypt. She's right, we did a lot of history. And we constructed mummies out of plaster of Paris, and it took a long time to get that out of my hair and all of that. We trekked to Jamaica Bay to study the Phragmites that we had learned about when we studied ancient Egypt. We read historical fiction. We went to Philadelphia to learn about our nation's founding. We figured out how to work together through group projects, and I think that's one of the biggest things I take with me into the rest of my life. With coaching, I practiced how to read aloud to younger children for my visit to a nearby preschool where I delivered caps for sale. Do you remember that? I got decent reviews from those little kids. I worked very hard at my cursive, which nobody learns anymore, I guess, because I wanted the right in Mrs. Farina's class to graduate to using a pen. When your cursive was good enough, you could write in ink. And I was not the first. And any of you who've seen my thank you cards, you don't blame her. But Mrs. Farina challenged us every day, and we really wanted to live up to her expectations. So because I know what Carmen Farina gave to me as a student, I know very personally what she brings to all the children, 1.1 million, as we've said before. So it's my privilege to give this apple to my teacher. And if we were a university, we would give you an honorary doctorate. But we're a proud learning leader, so we hereby declare you honorary learning leader. Thank you. Thank you.
That does start to conclude our Learning Leaders 2014 Spring Luncheon. We hope you've enjoyed the program, that it's given you a new motivation to get involved and support this amazing organization. Thank you to all of today's speakers and honorees, and thank you to all of you, our valued guests, for taking the time to celebrate with us this afternoon. Last but not least, if you have not taken a bite of that creamy pastry thing on your table, and as you reach for it, you see a little pledge card there, you are being urged to please fill out that pledge card and hand it in. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.